To understand Lorna Doone, you have to first understand the landscape of Exmoor. It isn't just a setting in this story, it's a character in its own right. It is a rugged, beautiful, and often treacherous stretch of moorland in southwest England, filled with deep ravines, mist-heavy valleys, and ancient, unforgiving terrain. In the late 17th century, when this story takes place, Exmoor was a place where the law was a distant concept, and for a certain family, it was a place to hide. The story is told through the eyes of John Ridd. John is a yeoman, a sturdy, honest farmer, and he is a man of immense physical strength and even greater moral clarity. He begins his story by recounting a childhood fight in school. A moment that establishes his character. He is not a bully, but he is someone who cannot be broken. He has a resilience that defines everything he does, a quality that serves him well in a region where survival often depends on one's ability to withstand both the elements and the people. The shadow hanging over the lives of the local people, including John's family, is the Doone clan. The Doones are outlaws. They were dispossessed of their legitimate estates back in 1640, and, rather than fading into obscurity, they retreated into the wild heart of Exmoor. They turned the moor into a private fortress, living by plunder and intimidation. To the local farmers, the Doones are like a recurring fever or a natural disaster, something you simply have to endure, a lawless force that the distant government in London seems unable or unwilling to stop. As a young man, John has a brief, almost dreamlike encounter near the Bagworthy water. He meets a young girl there, and there is an immediate, unspoken connection. But the moment is shattered when a group of Doone men interrupts them and they are separated. This encounter stays with him, a quiet memory of something pure in a life otherwise defined by the struggle for survival and the constant threat of the clan. As John grows into manhood, the world around him becomes increasingly volatile. The political landscape of England is shifting, and the tension between the law-abiding people of the moor and the lawless Doones is reaching a breaking point. John's life takes an unexpected turn when he is forced to travel to London. While there, he finds himself caught up in the chaos of the city, eventually performing an act of bravery that saves a high-profile individual from robbers. This act earns him a knighthood from King Charles II. He returns to Exmoor no longer just John Ridd, the farmer, but Sir John Ridd. This change in social status is crucial. It bridges the gap between the simple, hard-working life of the moor and the complex, often corrupt world of the aristocracy. But despite his title, John's heart remains on the moor, and his path eventually leads him back to Lorna. Lorna is believed to be a member of the Doone clan, specifically the granddaughter of Sir Ensor, but she is nothing like them. She is beautiful, gentle, and deeply unhappy living under the shadow of her family's reputation. When John and Lorna reconnect, the romantic tension is immediate and profound, but their love is a dangerous thing. Because she is believed to be the heiress to the Doone domain, her family sees her as a prize to be controlled rather than a person to be loved. The councillor, the strategic mind of the clan, wants to use her to secure their power, while the volatile and predatory Carver Doone wants to claim her for himself. The conflict becomes a pressure cooker. On one side you have the Doones, who operate by their own brutal code of violence. On the other, you have the local yeomanry, who are tired of living in fear and are beginning to organise. Amidst this, the Monmouth Rebellion breaks out, adding a layer of national political chaos to the local blood feud. John finds himself caught in the middle, trying to navigate his duty to his family and his desire to protect Lorna. It is during this time of upheaval that a major secret comes to light. It turns out that Lorna is not a Doone at all. She is actually a descendant of the noble house of Lorne. This is revealed through a family ring and a precious necklace that belonged to her mother. This discovery changes everything. It means Lorna is actually the heiress to a vast fortune and a legitimate noble status that far exceeds the Doone's stolen holdings, making her an even more valuable target for those who wish to exploit her. The climax of the story is a massive, coordinated effort to finally break the power of the Doones. John Ridd doesn't just rely on brute strength, he uses strategy. He helps organise a local militia, and they devise a plan to lure the Doones into a trap, using a fake shipment of gold as bait. The final assault is a daring nighttime operation. The militia carries out a coordinated attack, including a terrifying climb up a steep, slippery waterslide to reach the Doone stronghold. The battle is brutal and decisive. The Doone stronghold is destroyed, and the clan's reign of terror is effectively ended. Most of the Doones are killed in the fighting, though the ruthless Carver Doone manages to escape, remaining a dangerous shadow on the horizon. In the aftermath, the resolution is not just about the death of outlaws, but about the reclamation of order and identity. Lorna proves herself to be much more than a victim of her circumstances. She uses her wit and her newfound wealth to navigate the complex legal and political world, outmaneuvering corrupt officials to ensure her fortune is secure and her independence is protected. However, the story doesn't end with a simple celebration. Just as John and Lorna are finally celebrating their wedding, the nightmare returns. Carver Doone, who had escaped the malicious assault, bursts into the wedding and shoots Lorna before fleeing. In a blind rage, John pursues him across the moor. Their final confrontation ends in a desperate struggle in a mire, where Carver sinks into the mud and dies, leaving John exhausted and broken beside him. But the tragedy is avoided. Lorna survives the shooting, and after a period of anxious uncertainty, they finally find the peace they spent their whole lives searching for. When we look back at the story, a few major themes emerge. The most prominent is the tension between lineage and character. The book asks the fundamental question, are we defined by the blood in our veins or by the choices we make? The Doones are defined by a legacy of criminality, yet Lorna, despite her perceived connection to them, chooses a path of grace and morality. John Ridd, a man of humble origins, rises through merit and character to become a knight. There is also the theme of social mobility. In the 17th century, the social hierarchy was meant to be rigid and unchangeable. But John Ridd's journey from a simple yeoman to a knight suggests that bravery and integrity can disrupt even the most entrenched systems. It's a very optimistic view of human potential, suggesting that true nobility is found in action rather than birth. We also have to consider the role of nature. Exmoor is not just a backdrop, it is the engine of the plot. The ruggedness of the land provides the outlaws with their sanctuary, but it also provides the very tools, the ravines, the slides, the mists, that allow the protagonists to eventually defeat them. The landscape dictates the pace of the life lived upon it, acting as both a protector and a punisher. Finally, there is the question of violence. The book presents two different kinds of violence. There is the lawless, predatory violence of the Doones, which is used for greed and control. And then there is the righteous violence of the militia, which is used to restore order and protect the community. The story suggests that while violence is tragic, there is a moral distinction between the chaos of the outlaw and the organized defense of the law. Lorna Doone is a story about the struggle to emerge from a dark history. It's about the effort to build a life of peace and dignity when the world around you is defined by blood feuds and lawlessness. It's a romance, yes, but it's also a study of how individuals find their way through the wreckage of the past to claim a future of their own making.